Hello, everyone, and many thanks for joining today's first live stream. It is 18th of May, 12 p.m. Moscow time, and as always, I have prepared quite a number of news on some major developments that Russian media public is paying attention to, as the rest of the world, of course. During the program, I will share with you information about Ukrainian crisis, about this warfare, undeclared warfare that is going on between NATO member states and Russia, especially in terms of drone warfare, long-range strikes, and so on. Also, I will share some information about expected by many Russian retaliatory strikes on some NATO member states. This topic is widely discussed nowadays in the media, including alternative media, although I was talking about it, since forever, it seems to me. Also, dear friends, of course, Middle Eastern crisis, information about developments in and around Iran, and some other developments. I will show you two-seated version of Su-57 Russian fifth-gen fighter jet later on in the program. First image that appeared on the internet. Interesting. You will like it. But anyways, before I go through some news, let me just remind you, friends, that during the live stream, because I'm streaming on both my channels on YouTube and Rumble, if there will be any super chat on Rumble, of course, I will react on the super chat either during the stream or after the news segment towards the end of their stream. Also, I will do the same if there is any questions or the comments through support platforms like PayPal or Boost. The links are under this video in the description box and in the pinned comment. And there also, let me remind you, if I made that this independent media project of mine from Russia is fully subscriber funded. And so if you like my work, if you can and want to help me maintain this project alive, please consider to support. Under this video in the description box, you will find all the links that can be useful in this regard, including my Patreon page. Will be greater if you can join our community on Patreon or on Boosty, by the way, where there is a page also. And yesterday I published another extra on both my channels on Patreon and Boosty. It's a city walk. Basically, I spoke about some news, some geopolitical developments too, but mostly this video is about city walk around central Moscow mainly. So I will have more and more. I will try my best to have more content. It's already like 500 videos, by the way, 503 videos to be more precise, that I have published on my Patreon page, for example. Mostly news updates, but there are some entertaining videos too, like yesterday's one, this city walk. Okay, that's been said, dear friends, because there is a lot of news, and live stream probably will be hour and a half long. After stream, I will divide live stream into segments, and I will publish those short videos on my YouTube and Rumble channels. In case you cannot stay online and watch entire live stream right now, you can check those short videos, so you would not miss none of my reporting if you are interested. Okay, that's been said. Let's go through some news now, and I will start, as I usually do, with a report of Russian media based on Defense Ministry's latest update about work of Russian Air Defense Forces past night. And unlike yesterday's reports, today we have a much lesser number of drones that were launched by Kiev regime with the assistance of NATO to strike deep into Russian territory. 50 drones were intercepted during the nighttime. Defense Ministry is saying drones were intercepted over the Belgorod, Voronezh, Kursk, Oryol, Rostov, Tula regions, Krasnodar Krai, Crimea, and Sea of Azov. A really significant decrease in number of drone launches, although maybe after large-scale attack on Russian Federation yesterday, when overall more than 1,000 drones were launched in a 24-hour period, probably Kyiv regime and its NATO backers are stockpiling now drones, and in upcoming days, probably we will see again increase in these long-range attacks. 50 drones were intercepted during the nighttime, but these attacks on Russia continues. Dozens of drones were intercepted this morning, and Russian air defenses continue to deal with the incoming aerial targets, including ones that are directed towards Moscow. And shortly before I launched this live stream, RIA Novosti, for example, reported that among other directions, air defense forces intercepted also 2 drones that were flying towards Russian capital, Moscow. Of course, there will be updates on this matter during the day, and later on today at 9 p.m. in the evening Moscow time, when I will launch my live stream with the news update, I will share all the additional information on this topic. Due to these long-range attacks on Russian Federation, Crimean Bridge was shut down temporarily, and this morning media outlets were reporting that 16 trains, for example, were delayed due to suspension of the traffic on a bridge. No reports about the bridge being targeted or damaged or anything like that. But whenever there is a threat, bridges are closed for safety reasons, and once its situation is resolved, bridge is open. I guess by this moment, bridge is being opened, although I didn't see reports about it in media, so I cannot say for sure. But at some point, Crimean Bridge was shut down, and therefore there is delays now in train community. Of course, Russian militaries are retaliating on their hostile side, and past night, Russian Air Forces launched quite a number of drones and, according to some reports, missiles, also tactical missiles too, to strike military, logistical, and energy infrastructure of the Kyiv regime, energy infrastructure that is related to military-industrial complex and military activity of the hostile side. And according to reports that I see in the Russian segment of internet, our main direction of these retaliatory strikes by Russian forces was the Dnipropetrovsk area and Odessa region. Right now on your screen, you can see screenshots basically of some of the videos and photos that different Telegram channels, for example, are sharing about consequences of last night Russian retaliatory strikes. And as I mentioned already, dear friends, yesterday was a bit different situation in regards to drone attacks, long-range attacks on Russian Federation that is orchestrated obviously by NATO member states, and vast majority of these drones themselves are produced in European NATO member states, for example. And yesterday, in case you missed my updates and you didn't hear information from other sources, I will remind you that 556 drones were intercepted just during the nighttime. 120 drones were intercepted by Russian forces while they were approaching Moscow. So capital of Russia was one of the main directions of these long-range attacks. Past day, none of the drones, according to Russian segment of internet, none of the drones managed to reach city itself, Moscow city itself, but many drones were intercepted very close to Moscow. For example, number of drones were intercepted in Mytishi, I believe, in Khimki, and these are settlements right next to Moscow, by the way. If you don't know, you would not even notice that you cross this formal administrative border between Moscow and the Moscow region. You just go into Khimki like that, right? It's basically continuation of the Moscow, but formally it's a Moscow region. So unfortunately, drones launched by the regime with the assistance of NATO did came very close to capital itself. But according to reports, all of them were destroyed. Unfortunately, in the Moscow region, as a result of these long-range attacks, yesterday there were casualties. Several dozen civilians were wounded, and at least 3 civilians were killed. Indian embassy here in Russia stated that 1 Indian citizen was killed and 3 citizens were wounded. Indian citizens, by the way. It so happened that area that was struck by drone, Ukrainian/NATO drone in the Moscow region. In that area, there were some Indian citizens, and unfortunately, there was casualties among them too. Overall, in the past 24 hours, as I already mentioned, more than 1,000 drones, 1,054 drones, Flamingo missiles and Neptune MD missiles were launched by Kyiv regime and intercepted by Russian air defense systems. Big number there, of course, massive number. And you know, dear friends, whenever there is a drone attacks, long-range attacks on the Russian Federation, one of the directions of these attacks quite often is the Leningrad region. And whenever Leningrad region or the St. Petersburg city of the Russian Federation is targeted, Kyiv regime and its NATO backers are using airspace and potentially ground too of number of NATO member states: Poland, Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia, Finland, and that's their direction where aerial corridor is created for these drones. Probably Kyiv regime, with assistance of NATO, are launching drones from Western Ukraine. These drones then are crossing the border with Poland. From Poland through Suwalki Gap, they are entering Lithuania, then Latvia, Estonia, and either targeting Russian Federation from Estonian airspace. That's what usually happens. Or every now and then, those drones are crossing Gulf of Finland, entering Finnish airspace, and are targeting Leningrad region from the northern side. And these attacks are taking place so often, especially in last several months, that there is numerous occasions now when these Ukrainian/NATO drones are crashing due to some technical issues, malfunction, crashing on the territory of these Baltic states. Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia, Finland all reported about Ukrainian drones being crushed on their soil. There was and still is ongoing massive political crisis in Latvia, for example, where not just defense minister resigned, but also prime minister, after Ukrainian drones targeted by malfunction, I guess, or some technical issue, targeted Latvia's energy infrastructure. Past week that was, but point is that a couple of weeks ago, due to yet another waves of large-scale attacks on Russian Federation from the airspace of these NATO member states, Russian Defense Ministry published a list of number of NATO member states that are providing ground for the Kyiv regime to build their drones, or formally to build Ukrainian drones, but in reality, this is, of course, NATO military-industrial complex that is involved. So their Defense Ministry of Russia published a list of countries that are providing ground, these long-range drones to be built and then to be launched against Russian Federation. Russian Defense Ministry also published a list of enterprises, companies, and their addresses even. Their locations were revealed that are involved in this production of these long-range weapons and parts for the weapons, and then subsequent attacks on Russian Federation. And after Defense Ministry of Russia revealed their information about it, former Russian President Dmitry Medvedev, current Deputy Chairman of the Security Council, and also Secretary of the Russian Security Council, Shoigu, they made quite a strong statements in regards to direct involvement of the NATO member states in these attacks on Russian Federation. Medvedev at some point even said that list that was published by Russian Defense Ministry should be taken literally as a target list, potential target list for Russian militaries. And since that moment, even though Western ruling class, globalist control regimes in Europe, for example, are trying hard to paint the picture that they don't care about Moscow statements, they don't take Moscow statements seriously, they believe Moscow is bluffing. The narratives that is spread by the West in this regard, but nevertheless, they began panicking. And political crisis that is happening in Latvia, for example, is a direct result of this panic, I think, because probably locals, at least in number of NATO member states, European NATO member states, are beginning to realize that due to extremely hostile activity of their governments against Russia, their countries are becoming legit target for Russian Federation. And no matter how Russia hater people in these NATO member states are, or significant part of the societies, possibly majorities, especially in the Baltic states, I don't think they want to find themselves on the receiving end of Russian retaliation, right? And therefore, pressure on the politicians, local politicians, is increasing. There is a crisis in Latvia. Probably we will see something similar in Lithuania, Estonia, possibly Finland too. Although leadership of these countries is trying hard now to play with the plausible deniability and present the picture that they did not know that Ukrainian drones were using their airspace. They did not provide no aerial corridor. They have nothing to do with it. That's their narrative that they are pushing for, but no one is believing in that. Obviously, no one is believing in that. And despite all the strong statements that they are demanding from the regime to keep their drones out of airspace of their countries, drones are still flying. Drones are still flying. And for example, we have this reporter that Ukrainian drone reportedly crashed in Lithuania again. And this information was confirmed by country's National Crisis Management Center. Drone failed near the village of Samane in the eastern part of the country, as specified by the center. The device crashed in the field. Ukrainian drone that invaded Lithuanian airspace was not detected by their air control systems, reported Defense Minister Kaunas on LRT's broadcast. So yesterday, another drone crashed in Lithuania, and this instance once again confirms that all the statements are made by leadership of these NATO member states that they are not involved in these attacks, they did not know that the regime was using their airspace, is false, right? It's just a very bad or weak attempt to play with plausible deniability. Because, I mean, how, you tell me, dear friends, how Ukrainian drone end up in Lithuania? That's where Lithuania is. And that's where Kiev controlled territory is. Ukraine, let's say, part of it, right? That is still controlled by Kiev regime. So how Ukrainian drone end up in Lithuania? They have no border bother, right? This drone had to fly into Poland, and from Poland then into Lithuania, right? And that clearly indicates that there is aerial corridor still operational, aerial corridor that is created by these NATO member states for Ukrainian/NATO drones to fly northwards and then to strike Russian Federation, either from Estonia or Finland. And when Russia will retaliate, no one should whine about. No one should whine about that. This is an unprovoked attack of Russia. It's not unprovoked. European NATO member states are provoking Russia for many, many years now, and we all know that, isn't it? We all know that. And let me also remind you, dear friends, that according to reports, Kiev, according to statements from these Baltic states, Kiev does not warn the authorities of Estonia and Latvia, for example, about the possible flight of their drones in their airspace. In a message from the Estonian Air Force to YLE, Finnish media outlet, it is stated that Ukrainian drones not give NATO countries advance warning. Ukraine does not give NATO countries advance warning about a possible approach of drones to alliance's airspace, and we're supposed to believe this. Really, dear friends, we're supposed to believe this, isn't it? Flight path and targeting data for these drones are coming from NATO. And now to believe that NATO did not know direction of these drones or the flight path of these drones, it's insanity, right? more this leadership of these NATO states talk about or plays with their plausible deniability, worse they do for themselves, right? Because it's just becoming laughable. Everyone knows flight path intelligence, flight path targeting data for these long-range drones are coming from the NATO member states. And to say that they did not know, NATO don't know, and NATO didn't receive warnings about these drone flights is just too stupid to say that. But they are panicking. They are clearly panicking, and I guess that's from where these kind of nonsensical statements are coming from. Of course, they're not gonna fool Russia, and they're not gonna influence Russian decision-making process with this very poor acting, let's say this way, and while they are messing with their plausible deniability. Latvian leadership is demanding Ukrainian drones to be intercepted whenever they are entering the airspace, which is also part of this gameplay with the plausible deniability. Lithuanian president demanded that Ukrainian armed forces drones flying into a country to be shut down. Well, yesterday, one of Ukrainian drones crashed in Lithuania, and there were not a single report about even attempt on behalf of Lithuania to shut down these drones. I guess there was a dozen of drones, right? Not just the one, but quite a number of them. One just crashed, and that's how we know about it, right? And so all these statements are just deception. That's all it is. Finland is there too. Finnish President Stubb stated that Zelensky personally allegedly apologized to him for Ukrainian drones crashing on Finnish territory, and there were several instances, dear friends. At least 3-4 drones crashed in Finland in past several weeks, and what this Zelensky's alleged apology to Finnish side changes really. This is very weak. It again very weak play on behalf of Helsinki. This kind of deception clearly not going to influence Russian decision making. If Helsinki come up and apologize to Russian people that their airspace was used to target Russia, even that would not change calculus of the Moscow, but at least they will have more chances in Helsinki to mislead the people that they did not know, right? And that's why they are apologizing. But they are not even apologizing to Russia. Neither Finland, neither Estonia, neither Latvia or the Lithuania. None of them apologized. And well, despite certain panic that is clearly visible, noticeable among globalist control regimes in Europe, well, there are also still people in European bureaucracy that have no care. They want to continue. They want to continue escalate with Moscow because they simply don't believe that Russia will retaliate. And among such people, there is, of course, Ursula von der Leyen, head of European Commission, who stated past Thursday, for example, that formation of their support package for a Kyiv regime worth 6 billion euros is completed, and this package, 6 billion euros mainly are allocated for drones. So Brussels bureaucrats, because they don't believe that Russia will ever retaliate, no matter how many acts of war European NATO member states going to commit, they are still therefore pushing for further escalation. And you can imagine, dear friends, how many these relatively cheaper drones can be produced with 6 billion euros. And it's just one package. And there is numerous allocations from each NATO member state to prolong this proxy war. And a significant portion of the money is going for long-range weapons that then are used against Russia, drones and missiles. And you know, dear friends, these Flamingo missiles, for example, it's a British missile, right? Kiev regime might put on those missiles made in Ukraine marks all over the missile, actually, but no one gonna believe this, right? It's a British missile. Flamingo is a British missile developed many years ago together with UAE, actually. Together with UAE, and on the internet you can find even informations, quite a lot of informations when this missile was presented years ago by this combined project of British military-industrial complex and the UAE's military-industrial complex. So that's what is going on, and I'm afraid Moscow, as I was predicting for a very long time, Moscow did find now itself being cornered, sort of in a position when there is only one way out. And this way is to retaliate and retaliate strong on NATO member states that are violating Russian sovereignty on a daily basis and are engaged in this undeclared war against Russia. Then, once Russia retaliates, I think people like Ursula von der Leyen and her colleagues, extreme Russia hawks, they will come to their senses, let's say it this way, right? And of course, many people are asking when Russia gonna retaliate. There is a lot of talks that retaliation is coming, but when? And of course, I cannot know when. It's only like few people, probably, that knows what plans Russia has in terms of retaliation. I'm quite confident we will retaliate because, unfortunately, Western ruling class, globalist and globalist controlled regimes in the Western world, in Europe included, did not leave us any other option now but to retaliate, because if we don't, they will only continue to escalate, right? And if yesterday, for example, Russian air defense systems shut down or intercepted 1,000+ drones and missiles, few months from now, if we do not restore deterrent, this number of drones and missiles that are launched in a single day might reach 2,000, maybe 3,000. And you understand, no air defense system in the world is capable enough to deal with so many aerial targets simultaneously, right? And so we don't have an option but to strike back to restore deterrent. And because retaliation, let's say, on the Baltic states alone, states that are basically openly involved in these attacks on the Russian Federation, they are providing airspace. I mean, Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia, Finland, they are providing airspace and possibly even land, right, for these launches, for these attacks on Russia. But if we retaliate on these Baltic entities only, that would not deter globalists, of course. That would not deter globalists. To restore deterrent, I think we have to strike on all countries, on all legit targets in all the countries that Russian Defense Ministry mentioned in a statement a few weeks ago. And that is UK, Germany, France, I believe, was mentioned too, Italy, and many, many others. These are the countries that are manufacturing, are engaged in the combined manufacturing of their drones and the missiles and their parts of the drones and missiles that are then used against Russian Federation, right? It's a combined British Ukrainian or German Ukrainian or French Ukrainian or Italian Ukrainian manufacturing plants that are absolutely legit target, I think, to be annihilated. And I think that's going to be the scale of Russian retaliation with the conventional weaponry. I don't believe we will use nuclear weapons during the first wave of retaliation, at least. And hopefully there will be no need for a second wave and the third wave and the 10th wave of retaliation. Hopefully Western ruling class will learn straight away that they better back down. And so I think that's going to be the scale. if you're interested in my understanding of the situation, I think that's going to be the scale of Russian retaliation, not just Baltic states, but also leading European NATO member states that are very much involved in this proxy war against Russia and are leading the charge, actually, right? That includes, yet again, Germany and UK for sure, France for sure. And first wave of Russian retaliation will be with the conventional weaponry. Probably Oreshniks will be used, some Kinzhals, hypersonic missiles will be used, or maybe some other Russian missiles with the conventional warheads, with the ordinary warheads. If the European ruling class will launch straight away and they're back down, okay, that will be it, I guess, right? But I don't think they're going to learn from the first strike. They will retaliate. Most likely, they will launch missiles and drones, hundreds of them, maybe thousands, on the Russian Federation. Russian air defense systems will deal with majority of those incoming drones and missiles. Unfortunately, some will bypass air defenses, and well, of course, Russia will have to strike back again then. And that second Russian strike may not be with their conventional weaponry. And I'm saying so because lately, Russian president, spoke quite extensively about Russian nuclear triad. He spoke about recent successful test of Russian Sarmat, heavy ICBM, intercontinental ballistic missile. Russian president went to one of their institutes, scientific institutes, here in Moscow, and spoke about Russian nuclear triad again. And that institute, that scientific institute, is involved in production, was involved in the works on such Russian ICBMs as Bulava, I believe, Yars, Yasin, Topol-M, and maybe they worked on Sarmat too, who knows. And I was saying, I don't think this is a random development. I don't think Russian president, several days in a row talking about nuclear capabilities of the Russian Federation for no reason, just randomly. So because of this focus of Russian leadership on the nuclear triad, and also, for example, because of these reports that we have today, that Belarus is practicing cooperation with Russia on the delivery of nuclear munitions. Yes, there is a test training is going on right now in Belarus to deliver nuclear weapons, right? And I don't think this is also a random development, right? So when Russia strikes back on European NATO member states that are directly engaged in this undeclared war against Russia, in this proxy war, if European NATO member states will retaliate on Russia, then I guess a Russian second wave of retaliatory strikes might include nuclear weapons. Maybe. I'm not saying that this is, of course, 100%. I couldn't know it, but so many talks about nuclear weapons exercises in Belarus. Probably some exercises are taking place on Russian territory too, because of course nuclear weapons in Belarus are Russian nuclear weapons. So therefore, that's where we stand. That's where we are now, and I would love to see more activity in Europe from society. Right? I would love to see societies waking up in Europe and demanding from their own governments to stop committing acts of war against Russian Federation, stop being engaged in a proxy war against Russia, because yet again, retaliation is coming. And when missiles start flying, it's just going to be too late. It's just going to be too late. And it is very sad and unfortunate that in Europe, dear friends, as you didn't see any large-scale awakening of the societies, I didn't see it either. I didn't see it too, man. And that's very sad. So, yet again, if you ask, will Russia retaliate? I will say yes, most definitely Russia will retaliate. And I think with such a scale and force that even if there will be then some tit for tat between the sides a couple of times, eventually Western ruling class will be forced to back down. On the question, will nuclear weapons going to be used? I'm still more inclined to believe that we will have no need to deploy nuclear weapons. I hope for that conventional strikes, retaliatory strikes with the conventional weapon will be enough to put European elites into their place, right? But and therefore, I think there is a highly unlikely that we will have to deploy nukes. But we are getting ready. We are clearly getting ready to deploy nukes also, if necessary. But I will say 90% we will deal with this situation with the conventional weaponry, 95% even. And maybe there is a slight chance that we will go for nukes too in second or third or fourth wave of retaliatory strikes if European elites did not learn fast. That's what I think about this topic. And when it comes to this military maneuvers in Belarus, let me give you some details. During these exercises in Belarus, military units are training in the combat use of nuclear weapons and nuclear support. Belarus is working with Russia on a delivery of nuclear munitions and their preparations for their use. The press service of the Ministry of Defense of Republic of Belarus reported about it. And dear friends, Belarus is not just housing Russian nuclear weapons, but also Russian Oreshnik missile systems. And Oreshniks, might be built in a conventional way with the conventional warheads and also with the special warheads. Special warheads means nuclear warheads, of course. So I think Moscow is sending quite clear messages, isn't it? Quite clear message. You cannot get any more clear than it is right now. That Western ruling class still has little time to back down and get out of this proxy war, and then we can sort out our relationships. We can work on a new architecture of their security in Europe, in Eurasian region, let's say, right, on the Eurasian continent. And of course, European entities will, during the negotiations, we will come up with certain understandings, which European country gonna pay as a compensation for all the crimes that they committed against Russian Federation. They will pay. I mean, everyone should get ready that Europeans will pay dearly for next tens of years, right? Dozens of years, Europeans will pay to Russia to compensate for the harm, right, that those countries cause. This is inevitable. This is inevitable, and yet again, they still have a time. European elites still have a time, maybe day, maybe two, maybe week or month, but they have to be fast. They have to be fast learners. They have to use their opportunity to negotiate with Russia their own capitulation. Otherwise, they're going to get smoked. It's inevitable, by the way. It's absolutely inevitable. I was saying for years that day will come when Russian leadership will find itself in a position when no matter how much they would love to avoid escalation with European NATO member states and the retaliations on them, right? Only way out will be exactly that, retaliation. And I think we are now in that situation. I mean Russia. And Putin knows this, right? Putin knows this. And that's why a few days ago, he spoke about this Sarmat missile. He spoke about other Russian nuclear-capable weaponry. He still tries, man. He is still trying to kind of stimulate European elites to come to their senses and negotiate with Russia in a good faith about capitulation of the Europe, but it would not work. We will have to strike back for sure, and we will. Unfortunate reality, though. Unfortunate reality, tragic reality, I will argue. But now we don't really have options. Europeans did not leave, European elites, let me be clear on that. European political elites, military elites, intelligence communities, globalists, they did not leave us any other chance but to strike back and strike back hard, right? And all we can do right now, I think, is to make sure that collateral damage as a result of Russian massive scale retaliatory strike, collateral damage going to be minimal. That's best we can do at this point, right? Meanwhile, dear friends, very interesting developments are taking place in Kiev-controlled territory. Yesterday, quite a number of media outlets began reporting that NABU and SAP, these US-controlled so-called anti-corruption institutions in Ukraine, are preparing to arrest Zelensky's wife. Yes, you heard it correctly. Zelensky's wife might be arrested for corruption, of course. Let me give you details on that. So NABU and SAP are completing their investigation against Vladimir Zelensky's wife, Yelena Zelenskaya. Russian security agencies told the RIA Novosti. Anti-corruption authorities have ample grounds for detaining Zelensky's wife. They are currently deciding which criminal case should be opened first, the agency source said. According to this source, this information is no longer a secret from the head of the Kiev regime, who has strengthened his family security and begun negotiating with the Western partners. And who knows? Who knows, by the way, maybe soon Zelensky will flee Ukraine. Maybe Zelensky will flee Kiev regime in next couple of weeks time, couple of months time, because yet again, this NABU and SAP that are controlled, mostly controlled by US secret services, US state institutions, including FBI, by the way, they are clearly targeting Zelensky. They are clearly sending messages to Zelensky to obey orders from Washington, not from London, but from Washington. And if Zelensky will not listen, then the next step of NABU and SAP might actually be arrest warrant on this person, Yelena Zelenskaya, wife of Vladimir Zelensky, right? And all this story in Kiev-controlled territory about activity of the NABU and SAP, as I have said previously, dear friends, resembles, to me personally, resembles to wrestling match between Washington and London. These two NATO capitals are just competing with each other for control of the Kiev regime. As of now, clearly London is in charge, looks like. But US, Washington still has a lot of tools, right, to change their situation on the ground. And they are using some of those tools, right? They are using some of those tools. And, well, also I want to share with you this information that another affiliate of Zelensky, Yermak, is being bailed out from jail. The full amount for the release of former head of Vladimir Zelensky's presidential office, Andrei Yermak, from their pre-trial detention on bails has been paid. The High Anti-Corruption Court reported to the publication Общественное. And Yermak is free now. I see videos when he was released from this pre-detention. And someone paid $3.1 million for him, right, to be released. And you know, dear friends, when he was put under the arrest, I said straight away it wouldn't take more than a couple of days and he will be released. And there we go. He is released, right? And probably he will flee to control territory now. Before end of this week, I think Yermak will most likely flee to control territory. Maybe he will run for Israel. I think that's going to be the direction of Yermak. Or although who knows? We will find out. But I personally think he will run for Israel. And this is also clear. This whole story around Yermak is also obviously clear indicator that it's a clear indicator that there is a wrestling match is going on between Washington and London. And dear friends, I just saw this super chat from Scooby on Rumble. I forget to put chat on the screen. Many members of our community find it's more convenient when chat is being seen on the screen, so I did it now. And well, thank you very much, Scooby, for reminding me about it. I just forget to click that button there. Every time I launch live stream, I have to do it manually, right? So sometimes I'm just forgetting about it. And thank you very much, Scooby, for your super chat on Rumble and their $2 donation. Thank you. Okay, let's continue with some other news, right? Let's continue with some more other news. Well, yesterday during the big community chat, traditional Sunday community chat, I shared my take about this visit of US president into China. Despite my expectations that US would manage to come out of that summit with their hundreds of billions of dollars worth of contracts. And I was thinking like that because, I didn't expect our US position to be more weaker than I was expecting, right? But outcome of this summit is such, at least it looks like it right now, that whole this trip of US president into China with a huge delegation of public officials and also CEOs of leading companies. All of it was just a tourist trip, nothing else, right? We don't really have anything other than some indications or the promises that Chinese companies gonna do something, gonna buy some planes from Boeing, gonna buy some soybeans and some other agricultural produce. Nothing concrete was agreed as a result of this visit of Trump and his whole team in China. And I think I have to revise my take on US because even though I myself was saying in previous updates that US is in very weak position, probably weakest ever when it comes to relationships with China. And that's why I was saying that probably there are certain forces in the US that would love to postpone this visit of Trump into China, not to look very weak. Although if they would postpone, that would put US also in a weaker position. They didn't have a good choice there. But clearly I didn't expect US to be so weak that they failed to force China to take on itself obligation to invest in US economy, hundreds of billions, at least $1 trillion. I was expecting they will do it. They failed. And therefore, honestly, entire trip now can be called as a tourist trip, right? That's what it was, just a tourist trip. Nothing more. But who knows? Maybe there will be some contract signed once Chinese leader Xi Jinping will visit US, and he will in September, I believe. In upcoming September, Trump invited Xi Jinping, and we have reports that Chinese President Xi accept state to go to US for a state visit. And well, let's see if that trip of Chinese leader into US, if that trip will be tourist trip too. Could be, if trip will take place at all, right? Because there is a Middle Eastern situation, isn't it? There is a Middle Eastern situation, and because everyone or many commentators on the internet and many people, by the way, are laughing at the Trump's administration due to this nothing burger visitor into China. The US administration might try to direct attention again, and one way how they can divert attention of the public is, of course, war. That's what they usually do, and therefore there is a high expectations that this week, unfortunately, US probably together with Israel will resume attacks on Iran. There are already reports about it. I said before Trump's visit into China, I said that before visit attacks would not happen, but after visit probably attacks will resume shortly after visit of Trump into China, and that's exactly what is going to happen. US and Israel preparing to renew attacks on Iran next week. This was reported by New York Times yesterday, I believe, or day before yesterday. Also, we have this report that Washington has responded to Tehran's peace proposal, responded with rejection, basically. They reject peace proposal from Iranian side, and they come up with their own 5-point proposal, which is going to be absolutely unacceptable for Iran. And that's exactly why Washington come up with such proposals, to make sure that Iran will say no to it. Washington put forward the following 5 demands: the refusal to pay any kind of reparations and compensation by the United States. That's the first one. Someone going to pay compensation to Iran and Iranian people, that's for sure. Ideally, it has to be US and Israel because they targeted Iran. But if they will refuse, then someone else will pay it, because Iran will take what Iran considers to be its own, right? Second point, the removal from Iran and the transfer to the United States of 400 kilograms of uranium, enriched uranium. I think Iran never going to agree to transfer enriched uranium to the United States. Iran might agree to transfer enriched uranium to a third party, to Russia, for example, and probably that's exactly what is going to happen. But I don't think Tehran will ever agree to give this enriched uranium to the United States, or not happening, and Americans know that. Third point, the continuation of the operation of only one of Iran's nuclear facilities, also a non-starter. Why should Iran shut down its nuclear program, basically, right? That's what Washington is demanding, that you can only operate one infrastructure. Probably they mean Bushehr, a nuclear power plant that is built by Russian Federation, and all the rest should be shut down. Iran will never agree on that, of course. Another point, fourth point, refusal to unfreeze even 25% of frozen Iranian assets. Tehran not going to like it, and in response, Tehran will demand 100% of Iranian assets, frozen assets, to be returned to its rightful owner, to Iranian people. And fifth point, cessation of hostilities everywhere dependent on completion of negotiations, which is basically nonsensical pointer whatsoever, right? But when it comes to US administration, one should expect some nonsensical stuff, isn't it? Because more often than not, it is extremely difficult to make any sense of either statements or the steps that Washington is taking nowadays, right? Also, we have this report that Pentagon prepared their list of targets for strikes on Iran. As I said, man, US was never serious about the escalation, obviously, and US was never serious about the escalation because US is not led by people that care about American people. US is led by people that are puppets of third parties, right? Powerful shadow forces, and these forces are globalists. These forces are, let's call them neocons, American ruling class, right? In where neocons, deep state, multinational corporations, it's a one conglomerate, and I'm calling all of them neocons, right? So they're globalists, globalist allies in US neocons, and Zionists that are also allies of both globalists and neocons or American ruling class, right? And they don't want no the escalation in the Middle East. They want exactly the opposite: escalation to continue for as long as possible, right? To keep this region as isolated from the rest of the world as they possibly can. So therefore, or by doing so, force China to increase its dependence on Russian energy sector up to a critical level. I explained this a million times. And dear friends, whenever I see programs on internet, I don't know what is your reaction, but whenever I see topic of Middle Eastern crisis being discussed in Western media, even in Western alternative media, I'm kind of shocked that to nowadays, these famous experts, these public figures, politicians, commentators, everybody is still talking about U.S. and its involvement into this war against Iran as something separate event from their global politics, right? They still are discussing, surprisingly to me, that U.S. never had no plan. U.S. leadership did not have a plan. Trump failed to Israeli lies, and he went into this war based on Netanyahu's fantasies, which is fascinating, isn't it? Which is fascinating, really. How come that these very intelligent people still are talking about this stuff? And they are not even trying to explain to the public the big picture. Because to believe that Trump actually launched this war only because Netanyahu told him so, it's I don't know, man. It's a massive mistake. This war is a part of a bigger strategy that Western ruling class has, and to consider events in the Middle East to be some local or issue of just Israel and the US is a crucial mistake. If you're going to continue on that path, you will never understand what's going on. Am I correct? And I don't understand why these people, these famous commentators, experts, and then all the others, why they are not even attempting to explain to people what is actually going on. I'm explaining, right? But I'm a tiny channel, by the way. I mean, I'm not an expert in anything, really. I'm just a journalist, right? I'm just a citizen journalist now with their actual journalistic past. That's all it is, man. I never claimed to be expert in anything, but at least I'm trying to explain what's going on, to explain the big picture, right? And I'm ready to discuss these topics. I can come up with my arguments. I'm open for counter arguments too, but at least I'm explaining what is going on. No one else does, man. Everybody is still focused that, well, Trump made a mistake. He did not knew what's going on. They were thinking that Iran will collapse in a 2 days time, and Trump went into this war because Netanyahu told him so. Come on, man. Globalists and American ruling class, maybe and most likely they use their Zionist allies to push around Trump, to move him into the direction that they want. Okay, but to say that this war is for Israel and Israel only, it's a massive mistake. globalists don't care about Israel whatsoever, right? It so happened that globalists and Zionists are situational allies, and for quite a while now, for centuries actually, right? But it does not mean that they have the same goals. Zionists want a destruction of the Middle East to make this greater Israel project doable, right? And the globalists globalists and their American allies, American ruling class, they want to destabilize the Middle East, to engulf Middle East into wars on ethnic and sectarian lines, to cut off this region from the global economy as much as possible and as long as possible, to force China to increase its dependence on the Russian energy sector. It's so clear, man. It's so clear. And why nobody is talking about it? And you might ask, yeah, I mean, in case you are new, for example, in case some new members are watching now, they might ask her, yes, but what is the interest of Europe to force China to increase its dependence on Russia? And point is that unfortunately, Western ruling class has its assets everywhere. If they prove anything, if Western ruling class, if secret services of the Western countries that are controlled by Western ruling class proved anything, they prove that they are quite good in infiltrating the societies and even state institutions. Unfortunately, they are very good at it, right? And this is not something new. This is true for decades and even centuries, right? And unfortunately, I have to say, man, that I'm quite sure Western ruling class has powerful enough assets in Russia and powerful enough assets in China, fifth columns, right? And at the point when China, if Western ruling class succeeds and they force China to increase its dependence on Russian energy up to a critical level, and that means 60-70%, right, of energy imports from Russia. If they did manage to put China in that situation that they are importing 70% of their energy from Russia, at that point they will activate these fifth columns to create tensions between Moscow and Beijing. It's not going to be that difficult for them. And eventually, while creating tensions between the two, they might put fear in the Chinese leadership in 10 years from now, I'm talking about, in 7 to 10 years from now, let's say, if they are successful in the Middle Eastern chapter and other chapters of their long-standing decades-old strategy focused on destruction of Russia and China and cementing of the Western dominance. So if they push China to be so dependent on Russian energy, they will use their fifth columns to create tensions artificially between the two sides, right? And to put fear into Beijing, into Chinese leadership, that Moscow is about to turn its back on China, cut energy supplies, and or redirect energy supplies towards other parts of the world, towards Europe, for example, right? And you think if they succeed in that, if Western ruling class succeeds in that, what Beijing gonna do? What think process is gonna be in Beijing? If they actually believe that they are about to lose 70% of energy import, right? At that point, Western ruling class might be in a position to quite easily manipulate Beijing to go for a military solution, to try and militarily secure closest energy fields. And it so happened that these freaking energy fields are in Russia, mostly in Russia. In Kazakhstan, yes. In Central Asian Republic, in Kazakhstan, yes, there is a massive oil fields, but nothing close to what Russia has, right? So that's what they want. That's what Western ruling class wants, to eventually, in time, create tensions between Russia and China and even provoke a military confrontation and destroy both countries like that. And to destroy entire global South, actually, simultaneously, and even idea of the multipolarity. So I'm explaining all this stuff, right? I'm well open for counter arguments if there is any, right? China, unfortunately, because Western ruling class partially succeeded in the Middle Eastern chapter, and they did manage to isolate this region from the global economy. Already, China is increasing oil purchases from Russia, energy purchases from Russia, quite a big time already, right? Increase is about 30% in first several months alone of this year. And this is no good. That's why I'm saying neither Moscow neither Beijing can afford, literally, none of us can afford Western ruling class to be successful in the Middle Eastern chapter of this long-standing strategy of theirs that they were implementing since 2008. And we have to deter Western ruling class. We have to go for a standoff with the Western, I mean Russia and China, with our allies. We have to go for a standoff, for nuclear standoff also, if that will be necessary. Because we need Middle East to be, we need strategical stability in the Middle East. We cannot allow this partial isolation, even partial isolation of the Middle East to continue much longer, right? We cannot allow this to continue. But anyways, sorry for this. I took too much time maybe while explaining my take on the situation. But yes, I mean it is sort of frustrating when I'm watching these big channels, right? Even in alternative media, and they are discussing Middle Eastern stuff, and all they talk about is how Israel managed to manipulate with US and how all this situation is all about Israel, which is not really the case. These Middle Eastern developments are part of a much bigger strategy that Western ruling class is employing, and it's only partially related to Israel. Actually, and as I said, globalists don't give a damn about Israel or anything else except their own domination over the world, really, right? Just because they use Zionists to push around Trump does not mean that all this Middle Eastern story is done for Israel. No, man. Anyways, unfortunately, there is a high risk, of course, that this week, U.S. and Israel will resume attacks on the Middle East, and Trump himself come up with this yet another poster with the threats to Iranian people, Iranian civilization. For Iran, the clock is ticking, and they better get moving faster, or there won't be anything left of them. Time is of their essence. President DJT, yet again, he's threatening with their genocide, basically. Entire civilization there. Insanity. But yes, we should take seriously these reports about incoming escalation, because I think that's what they're going to do. CNN also reports the Pentagon has prepared their list of targets for strikes on Iran in case Donald Trump orders to a resumption of the strikes. And I explained earlier, dear friends, what is going to be strategy of the Western ruling class for a foreseeable future, let's say, because neither US neither its allies are in a position right now to go for a ground invasion of Iran, at least on the scaled up ground invasion. They will use a different strategy. They will use limited strikes to maintain instability in the region. They will target Iran, let's say, every couple of weeks or once in a month, right? And that will be enough to keep a region partially isolated from the rest of the world. And they will continue to do so, to implement these tactics, basically, until winter, right? And during the winter time, I think Americans will go for full-scale invasion of Iran, or large-scale invasion, let's say, right, from several directions. That's what I think, and they're gonna go for a invasion of Iran because this strategy of limited strikes is enough to maintain this region partially isolated from the rest of the world, especially energy sector of this region. But as time goes by, local countries will begin implementing alternative routes, right? Alternative routes, and that includes not just Iran, but other regional countries too. Alternative routes of import-export. And they will be able to export their oil through other directions, right? And this is something totally unacceptable for the Western ruling class. And to make sure that these alternative routes not gonna be implemented or not gonna work, at least as efficiently as local countries would like, U.S. Western ruling class will push U.S. And its allies for a ground invasion of Iran, which will, of course, most likely engulf entire region into fire, right? Because U.S. troops gonna be just all over the place. So strikes gonna be also all over the place. But ground invasion, I expect ground invasion to happen towards the winter, and it so happened, interestingly, that in December this year, all younger people in US will be automatically drafted. It does not mean that all of them will be called to serve in army. What it means that US militaries will automatically receive all the data about young people that, if necessary, can be mobilized. Right, so interesting coincidence there, I think. Also, RIA Novosti is reporting that Iran has threatened to destroy all US bases in the southern Persian Gulf. Iran will dismantle all US military bases in the southern Persian Gulf, said Ibrahim Zolfagari, spokesperson for their country's Hatam al-Anbir Military Command Center headquarters, IRGC spokesperson, basically. Over the past 24 hours, IRGC Navy has prevented any vessels from passing through Strait of Hormuz. All American military bases in the southern Persian Gulf will be deactivated in the near future. He wrote on social media. Zulfagari promised that the authorities of the Islamic Republic would build their new order. Okay, and I mean, they proved that they are well capable of erasing from the face of the earth US military bases. Over 228 facilities in US bases all over the Middle East were destroyed, significantly damaged or destroyed, by the way. And this statistics is coming from US media, right? So the real number could be even higher, maybe twice higher. There are reports that some US bases literally were wiped out of the face of the earth. I mean, after relentless drone and missile strikes. Well, you might ask why US didn't launch attacks on Iran, these limited strikes already on Iran. What are they waiting for? And in my understanding, one reason why these attacks did not happen yet is that they needed resupplies. But US military personnel, US military assets in the region, they needed resupplies, right? US destroyers launched hundreds of, US has like over a dozen destroyers in the region, and all of them already used whatever, for example, whatever Tomahawk missiles they had on the board, right? So they had to be resupplied. So that takes time, isn't it? Also, when it comes to air defense systems that US has in the region, they were
decimated big time, right? And whatever air defense systems are still operational, they use their practically all their missile interceptors that they had, so they had to be resupplied too. That takes time. And then there is also logistical issues that U.S. personnel was facing, including food deliveries. By the way, you have seen pictures, isn't it? I shared in my videos pictures, for example, photos of meals that was given to U.S. Personnel, military personnel on USS Tripoli, assault amphibious warship, for example, or on Abraham Lincoln aircraft carrier. And people were shocked worldwide to see that US military personnel was actually given as a food this something that was on those pictures, right? So the US militaries were facing and probably still continue to face tremendous logistical issues too. And to deal with that stuff, that also takes time. And then, well, time comes for US president's visit to China. And obviously, you know, they had to postpone whatever plans they had about attacks on Iran until this visit will happen. So now, if they dealt with their logistical issues, at least partially, probably they will resume attacks. Although there is also one topic that needs to be highlighted. Maybe Pentagon is afraid that once they launch, they might launch limited attacks on Iran. Okay, right? But Iran might respond with not just limited attacks. Iran might just not stop. That's something that strategists in US have to think about, and Western ruling class also probably is considering such probability that if US begins attacking Iran, and then after a week Washington says, you know what, let's talk again, Iran might say, you know what, no, we are not stopping. We're going to obliterate your military assets all over their region and everywhere we can reach. And this time around, by the way, as some Iranian officials or public figures, let's say, indicated, Iranian militaries and the security services might go far beyond the Middle East. And they might bring war on the soil of hostiles, on the soil of Israel. And I mean, they are targeting Israel anyways. So they might go for US in US. I have seen a couple of statements, by the way. I have seen a couple of statements from influential figures in Iran that were kind of hinting that if US launches strikes again on Iran, response will be not just in a way that we already seeing retaliatory missile and drone attacks on US assets in the region, but Iran might go beyond that. And God knows what they mean by this. I personally would not be surprised if Iran will take on rigid targets inside the US or in Europe, by the way, or in both, in US and in Europe. And to do so, all Iran needs to have is well-trained and well adapted for modern warfare, well-informed assets, right? Groups, basically, in US and in Europe. And you can imagine, dear friends, group of special unit of, let's say, 5 to 7 well-trained, well-equipped with their FPV drones included. You can imagine what a group of 7 of well-trained personnel with FPV drones and all the necessary stuff can do to any energy facility inside the US or even military base. They can, they can cause significant casualties and damage to US personnel and military base while using just the FPV drones, because you think how many US bases are ready to deal with their wire-guided FPVs. They might have some radio electronic warfare systems nowadays on a basis to suppress ordinary FPVs. But what they gonna do with the wire-guided FPVs, man? Nothing, right? Literally nothing that they can do. So when Iranian, some influential people in Iran says that we might go beyond regional affairs, right? Or when it comes to our retaliation, maybe they mean they're gonna strike legit targets on US soil and also on US assets in Europe. Maybe. So that's another factor that probably is taken into calculations by their US military strategists, and that could be one of the reasons why they did not go for this I forgot the word, man, for these limited attacks. But eventually they will, because Western ruling class will push Washington to go for, they will push Trump to order US militaries to go for that limited strikes, even if militaries will say this is a disaster because Iran might not stop this time around. We will find out. We will find out soon, dear friends. Also, in terms of preparations for this limited attacks, let's say on Iran, US militaries are operating throughout the region with the drones, of course, and we have reports that Houthi rebels or Ansar Allah movement, Yemeni Ansar Allah movement, shut down yet another US MQ-9 drone in Safer, Marib region. So minus $35 million from US taxpayers' money, I guess, right? And Houthis, they are not messing around, by the way. They are not messing around. And they are ready to take some strong actions if necessary. They already indicated that. Also, let me remind you, dear friends, that yesterday a number of sources reported that nuclear power plant was targeted in UAE, United Arab Emirates. No injuries were reported, no impact on radiological safety levels, but this is a big deal, of course. This is a big deal because we know which side is all about nuclear terrorism, and this is Western ruling class, right? They are authorizing Kyiv regime to take strikes on Russian nuclear power plants on regular basis. American, Israeli militaries targeted nuclear facilities of Iran on numerous occasions now, right? And I'm 100% convinced, by the way, 100% convinced that this attack on UAE's nuclear power plant was a false flag operation orchestrated by Israeli Mossad, Israeli Secret Service, by US CIA, by US Secret Service, and potentially British MI6 also was involved. British Secret Service. This is a clearly false flag operation to further push UAE to get engaged openly in a war against Iran, and maybe even to provoke UAE to take action against Iran's Bushehr nuclear power plant, for example, that is located not far away from the Persian Gulf, actually, from the coastal line of the Persian Gulf, right? And in upcoming days, we might actually see attacks on Bushehr nuclear power plant. Western ruling class is trying hard, man. They are trying hard to create, to engulf entire region into war on ethnic and sectarian lines. They are succeeding with Bahrain and UAE, and these two entities are extremely hostile, extremely irrational, inadequate, absolutely inadequate, right? And I think it's only a matter of time now. They crossed red lines. Both Bahrain and UAE crossed the red lines, and I will give 100%. By the way, I will give 100% that in next 55 years, neither Bahrain, neither UAE will exist. These entities cannot be saved now. They are finished, right? Just mark my word, dear friends, 3 to 5 years from now, and they're going to be no Bahrain and no UAE on the political map. If Kuwait acts carefully, if Kuwait acts carefully, they might maintain the statehood, right? Kuwaiti ruling families might maintain statehood for their kingdom. But if they are not careful, then it would not take long and much time for Iraqi Shiite militias to take back what they think is theirs anyways. They don't recognize existence of no Kuwait, never did actually, right? So Kuwait should be very careful, but they still have a chance to survive this regional crisis. But UAE and Bahrain is finished. Mark my word, 3 to 5 years, they are done. None of them gonna be on the political map. Saudi Arabia is acting, even though pre-war period, there were reports that Saudis were also kind of pushing US for a war against Iran, but now when they realize what's going on, and hopefully they realize what's up, right? What's going on. Now they are much more careful. Now Saudis are much more careful, and well, Saudi Arabia will help UAE to disappear. Let's keep that in mind too. Saudi Arabia not gonna forgive UAE leadership that they betray Riyadh while leaving OPEC and OPEC Plus, while being active ally of Israel, not just US but Israel too, by the way, and therefore Saudis will actually help UAE to disappear from political map. Iran will help also with this. Probably some provinces of UAE, some Emirates will join Saudi Arabia eventually. Some might go actually independent, I don't know. But in order to avoid confrontation with Iran, probably Saudi Arabia will say, you know what, Tehran, I'm going to take UAE. You take care of Bahrain, right? And that's how it's going to be. In Bahrain, by the way, majority of population is Shiites, right? Bahrain was a part of Iran, actually. And the ruling class is a Sunni Muslims there. And I don't think, and population, Bahraini population feels like they've been occupied. So therefore, to restore the balance, of course, Bahrain has to become a part of Iran again. Obviously, by the way, I'm all in support of that. And Tehran and Riyadh will sort this out between each other. They will, right? That's also something to keep in mind. Due to stupidity of the leadership of these both entities, Bahrain and UAE, man, they sacrificed basically future of these countries due to their freaking stupidity. Unbelievable. And when it comes to idiocy of the UAE leadership, by the way, look at this information. US officials are so confident now that they can manipulate with the UAE ruling class in the way they want, and they are pushing now them. They are pushing Abu Dhabi to go for occupation of Iranian islands. They might actually, they might actually. And I said there many times before, isn't it, that there are several islands that are disputed between UAE and Iran. Iran is not disputing nothing. It's Iranian islands, period. UAE wants control over those islands. And there are some other islands too in the Persian Gulf, in the Hormuz Strait area, that UAE might go for military occupation. And of course, that will make this, that will only fast track basically total disintegration of the UAE, and that's it. It would not impact Iran in any way, shape, or form. Some US officials are encouraging the United Arab Emirates to seize one of Iran's islands in the Persian Gulf. The Telegram has reported, citing sources. Okay, man, let them try. Let them try. I will just remind you, dear friends, that in the Persian Gulf, there is these 3 islands that are disputed, that UAE, I believe, disputes. One is this Abu Musa Island, right? That is disputed. Another one is this Big Tomb or Tomb Island, Greater Tomb Island and Lesser Tomb Island, these two right there. I believe this is the islands that UAE is kind of in wants to reestablish control, although there is a plenty of islands, by the way, right, that are Iranian, and US might actually encourage UAE to go for occupation of any of those islands, right, and that makes UAE, of course, openly involved into war against Iran, and then all bets are off, right? Iran will just annihilate UAE, man, right? And the Riyadh will applaud, not publicly, but Riyadh will applaud because you think who's going to establish control over the UAE territories? Saudi Arabia, of course. Saudi Arabia will take care of it, and maybe some parts will go to Iran, but mostly UAE gonna join Saudi Arabia. And when it comes to Bahrain, by the way, this is the island, right? This is the island, and as I said, majority is Shiite there. So therefore, I think either Bahrain will totally get rid of any U.S. presence, U.S. military presence, or the Western military presence, or most likely Iran will go for it and will reunite this island with Iran, as it was the case in past, by the way, right? So that is that. So much is going to happen there, man, in the Middle East. And how long is this update, man? How long is this update? It's already 1.5 hours. It's already 1.5 hours, and there's still a lot of news. There was 2 more super chats, dear friends. 2 more super chats on Rumble. Let me react on these super chats. That will give me a little break from news for a couple of minutes. Let me react on these super chats, and then I will continue. There is a very interesting news left, by the way, for this news segment that I have bookmarked. So if you have a time, don't go anywhere. But in case you have no time to stay towards the end of the program, I will just remind you that after live stream, I will divide video of this live stream into segments, and I will publish short episodes on my YouTube and Rumble channels, so that you can take a look at those episodes whenever you will have time. And now, if I may, I will react on this super chats from Scooby. There was 2 more super chats, so let's go one by one. First super chat says, thank you very much, Scooby, for your super chats and donations through super chats. Scooby is commenting facts of or the evidence of it being promoted among the globalists or ruling class, absent that logic of it being oh, come on, this is clearly part of another. Okay, there is another. Yes, Scooby, I see. There is there is another part of this commentary that I missed. I will react on it right now. Okay. My apologies for this little confusion. So that's how it is. So thank you very much, Scooby, again. And Scooby is commenting, if you want people to buy into their big picture theory, do what Berletic does and highlight their architects of ITER, as well as their demonstrated their theory from think tanks or academics. I actually can do this. Brian Berletic is doing a great job when whenever he's sharing his take on and explanations of different developments in this world. He is always, maybe not always, but he very often uses public documentations from Western state institutions or think tanks like RAND and so on, right? It makes your point stronger. It makes your point stronger, of course. But and maybe I will do the same. But either way, I don't want nobody to buy into my my theories. I'm just sharing my take, and I'm trying to explain why I think so. What is the logic behind my thought process? If you see big picture same way, good. If you don't, maybe you will do some research and you will come up with your own understanding of the big picture, right? I don't want to. I don't expect anybody to agree with me, and I'm not looking for disagreements either. I'm just sharing my take, right? And as time goes by, members of our community that are that know my stance, right, know how I interpret these sort of developments. When they see that things are happening that I was predicting like a long time ago, well, they will probably say to themselves that, oh, you know what, Levan was correct. That's all, really. I have no intention to sell anything to anybody, really, right? I'm just sharing my take, and I'm explaining situation in a way I see it based on my experience, my education, and my analytical capabilities, right? That's all. Scooby. But I do understand what you are talking about there, 100%. If I use same approach as Brian Berletic does from New Atlas, great channel, by the way, and greater host of the channel, of course. In that case, it will be more easy to understand what am I talking about, right? It will make my takes more easily digestible, I guess, for the public, because they need to. That's how many people work. They need some authority to say something. I am not an authority, right? I'm not an expert. I'm just an ordinary citizen, right? So when I say something, even if you see it logical, you might struggle to agree with me because I'm just a citizen journalist, man. That's all. But if I start using as an argument something that was written, for example, on Rounder or by some I don't know, USAID project or something, it might look more solid, right? This is just a technique of influence on the brains of the people, right? And I don't play this kind of stuff. I know it will make my point stronger, but I just I'm not selling nothing, right? It's not my intention to make sure that community gonna take my reading of the big picture as a basis. No, man. I will share my take. You will share your take. Other members of our community will have their own take on the situation. We might sometimes agree with each other, sometimes disagree, but it's all good, man. It's all good, right? But I do understand what you mean, Scooby. Thank you very much. Also, Scooby continues. Facts or evidence of it being promoted among the globalist or ruling class. Absent that logic, and also there is a Scooby. There is also one point. I know Brian Berletic quite often shares some documents that were actually that was published by Western think tanks, right? Or even state institutions, or the people that are close to them. But point is, why would they make public their plans if these are actual plans? You know, would you do that? Let's say you have this strategy that I'm talking about, strategy directed against Russia and China, strategy that is launched since 2008, in which Middle East is just one chapter among many others. And if we are Western ruling class and if we come up with this strategy, would we ever allow anybody to share any information about it publicly? No, man. If anyone would dare, if anyone knows about our plan, and if we are the globalists, right? If we are those people that pulling the strings, we will eliminate anybody that would even dare to think about sharing information about our plans, isn't it? This is also something, and that's why when I'm sharing my reading on the big picture, my argument is logic on one side, and there also factual information on the ground. And when I'm saying that globalists or Western ruling class wants to increase Chinese dependence on Russia, I was saying that this is their plan before they launch war on Iran, right? Scooby, if you remember, I was saying this way before they launch war against Iran. And I was saying they will launch this war exactly for these reasons, to increase Chinese dependence on Russia. And you see, even though they failed to achieve full success in the Middle Eastern chapter, they failed in many directions, right? At least as of now. Unfortunately, they managed to keep a region isolated from the rest of the world, at least partially. And what is happening? What is the aftermath? Among many different outcomes due to this crisis, one of the biggest one and one of the most ignored topics actually is Chinese increase of oil imports from Russia, significant increase, but we are talking about 30% already, right? And longer this crisis continues in the Middle East, when region is, even if region is partially isolated, Chinese increase in the Chinese imports of Russian energy will only continue, right? And this is a danger. This is clearly a danger. You don't want an extreme level of dependence in anything. And definitely you don't want that among nuclear powerhouses that Russia and China is, because there's always third parties that will try to steer the stuff, right, to manipulate the situation. So you don't want extreme dependence on anything, really, isn't it? But yet again, I am open for debate. I'm open for exchange of arguments, and I definitely have no intention, honestly. I have no intention to make sure that everyone gonna take my understanding on the situation. No, man. Maybe I'm wrong, for God's sake. Maybe I'm wrong. Just because it seems logical to me does not mean that it's going to be seen by you too in the same way. So I might be wrong. Easy, you know. So a second point of Scooby was there facts or evidence of it being promoted among the globalists or the ruling class, absent that logic of it being a plausible and a probable goal for them relative to many other possibilities. There could be so many possible trajectories for global dominance right now. For this point in history, you don't know what they are doing unless you have evidence of it. Scooby is saying, and yes, I mean, I get your point, Scooby. I get your point, Scooby, and based on factual evidence, factual information, we can say that one of the results of current instability in the Middle East is that China actually factually increasing its oil imports from Russia, and on several occasions I shared information, isn't it? Last year, China was decreasing actually. In 2025, China was decreasing oil imports from Russia, and they decreased it by 7%. By 7%. And now they are increasing, they already increased by 30%, which is a huge, isn't it? Last year, Russia imported in China 100 million tons of oil in 2025, 100 million plus tons of oil. This year, it's going to be, I don't know, 150 million tons, maybe. Tremendous increase. It will be a massive increase either way, right? And I'm not a big fan of that, man. Extreme dependence. I'm all for business between the countries, but not for extreme dependence of one on another, because that creates points of tension, points of possible instability. And there was another super chat, dear friends, from Scooby on Rumble, and let me highlight these two. And this was thank you very much, Scooby, for your super chat. I got a little break from the news. If you have not done these live streams with these dozens and dozens of news, it will be difficult to understand how exhausting it is, when you are going through news without stop, right? Like a robot. And these little breaks definitely help. And well, let me highlight another super chat from Scooby, which is, I believe, continuation of their discussion. If they wanted to turn Russia against China, it would have been far easier to allow Russia into their club when it was trying to join. Your theory is a complex conjunction fallacy in terms of logic. Look, Scooby, why did I understand yet again? I understand what you are saying there. I do understand this. If they wanted to use Russia against China, why they did not take Russia into NATO, for example, right? When Yeltsin and then Putin was actually asking to join NATO, and they did not. They did not, because in that case, you are basically informing your opponent, right, about your intentions. If Russia joined NATO, you think what would China do? And how easy it would be then for the West to manipulate with China? And are you sure that in 2000s, let's say, in 90s, early 90s, if during the Yeltsin period Russia was taken into NATO, or even if in early 2000s, in early years of Russian presidency of the Putin, if Russia was taken into NATO, do you think Chinese will just allow this to happen? Honestly, don't you think China is keeping massive armies on the border with the Russian Federation for a reason? And let's not forget, Scooby, that during the Soviet Union, there was actual skirmishes between Soviet and Chinese troops. So relationships between Moscow and Beijing is very complex one, right? And to manipulate with their with their major players on the geopolitical chessboard, to manipulate with their geopolitical players on this chessboard it's difficult stuff. And I can see Michael Kennedy's comment in China in 90s was not as strong. Yes, of course, but you don't know what was going on. I mean, if you have not been here, by the way, either in Russia or in any other former Soviet republic, it's a miracle that these countries survived. It was hell on earth, man. There was no states, actually. There was no states. On the paper, yes, but in reality, there were no states. There were no functional state institutions. For China to get to up to Ural Mountains probably would be like, easy walk, and no nuclear weapons would stop them, because Russia joining NATO is an existential threat for China, right? As Ukraine joining NATO is an existential threat for Russia, Russia joining NATO is an existential threat for China. So they would go all the way. So there is many reasons why they did not took Russia in when Moscow was asking. Many reasons. But I can understand their skepticism in your commentaries, could be in regards to my reading of the big picture. And yet again, I mean, it well might be that my understanding is wrong, and there are one more point why they did not take Russia into NATO. In order, you see what happened with European NATO member states. Because of their reliance on US, extreme reliance on US, European countries don't really have armies. They did not really spend much on military for past 3 decades, at least since the collapse of Soviet Union, basically. And you think what Russia would do if Russia was taken into NATO? Russia will do the same, Russian leadership. If we are all one club, why should we have like 2 million strong army or 1.5 million strong army? Why should we spend 100 billion, 150 billion on army when we can use these funds for fast speed railway, for example? There would be always these arguments, right? And that will make Russia militarily much weaker than it is now. And the West was always considering Russia to be main theater of operations against China, right? So they need, Western ruling class actually need Russia to be battle capable, because they want not just to provoke war between China and Russia, but they want these two to destroy each other. And in order this to happen, Russia has to be strong. Russia has to be strong, right? Not too weak. Otherwise, Chinese will just walk all over the place, and there would be and West will get even bigger and stronger superpower in case of China, right? If Russia is not strong enough. So this is a complex project. In order to make sure that Russia and China will freaking destroy each other, if you provoke war between them, you need both to be strong. And if Russia was a member of NATO, Russian army probably would be like British army now. Only professional army, 100,000 strong, that's it. Probably, man. Why would we spend? We will also rely on US in that case. Yeah, let's Americans pay for everything. We will have similar attitude probably in that case. So there's many reasons why Western ruling class refused to take Russia into NATO. But either way, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Kubi, for your interesting comments there, and for challenging my takes. Thank you, because yet again, it well might be that my understanding or my reading of the big picture is mistaken. I mean, who am I to argue otherwise, right? I don't know future. I'm just sharing my opinion, and if I'm correct, time will tell about it. If I'm not, then okay, at least I know that I try my best to be as informative in my analytics as I possibly could. That's how it is. Thank you very much, Scooby, for your super chats and donations. Let me continue, dear friends, now with some more news, because there is quite a number of news left, and there's some very interesting developments and that I want to share with you. But first and foremost, when it comes to this Iranian Middle Eastern topic and their escalation against Iran that US and Israel and Western ruling class basically is engaged in. Well, Abbas Araghchi, foreign minister of Iran, confirmed that Russian side proposed Iran to take Iran's enriched uranium into Russian territory. Abbas Araghchi thanked Russian president for such an initiative when they met each other about 2 weeks ago in St. Petersburg, here in Russia. And dear friends, I'm an advocate of idea of removing enriched uranium from Iran into Russian territory. I was saying this very, very long time now because it does make all the sense to me personally, right? Because if two capitals, Moscow and Tehran, agree on that to remove Iran's enriched uranium, that will kill only talking point Western ruling class and their puppet regimes have right now to justify war against Iran. All they talk about is Iran cannot have nuclear weapons. So if there is no enriched uranium in Iran, then there is no talking point too, isn't it? Because they're not going to have nuclear weapons out of thin air, right? And even though they enrich uranium not to build nuclear weapons, but to demonstrate that they can do it, but are choosing not to, nevertheless, removal of enriched uranium into Russia definitely will make Iran's stance stronger. And there may be, dear friends, maybe a flotilla that I mentioned about a week ago that moved into China Sea, Southeast China Sea from Russian territorial waters while passing through Tsushima Strait. Well, I think I said straight away that this flotilla, which is escorted by Russian military warships, this flotilla maybe is heading towards Iran exactly for that purpose. Exactly for that purpose, to deliver special equipment, specialists also to remove enriched uranium, right, and take it into Russia. And I remind you, dear friends, that in this flotilla, there is 10 vessels of Russian Pacific Fleet, right? And this flotilla transited Japan's Tsushima Strait about a week ago, entered the East China Sea. Now this flotilla probably is in Indian Ocean somewhere, right? Nothing is known about it in public, at least, right? No reports in Russian segment of internet, at least. So a group includes corvettes, Совершенный and Резкий. That's corvettes, military vessels, by the way. Also, Dubna class fleet oiler, tugboat, Andrei Stepanov, and 6 cargo ships, 6 massive cargo ships that you see on your screen. And I think there is a high probability that maybe this flotilla is moving towards Iran with special equipment to do exactly that's what I said there, a removal of enriched uranium from Iran. Maybe flotilla will try to break through US blockade and enter Persian Gulf. Maybe flotilla will dock somewhere in Pakistani waters, in Karachi, for example, and then from Karachi, the special equipment might be moved on the trucks and by ground that they can enter Iran's territory. Either way, soon we might have some update on Iran's enriched uranium, and I think it will be politically and strategically and in every possible way bigger move on behalf of Tehran if they will get rid of that freaking enriched uranium and kill only talking point that Western ruling class and their puppet regimes have. So let's wait for the news. By the way, a week has passed since movement began of that flotilla, and therefore in a week's time those vessels probably are somewhere, I don't know, man, either around Vietnam, Indonesia, or maybe already not far away from Indian coast, somewhere in Indian Ocean. There is, in my personal opinion, there is two more most plausible scenarios, sir. One is that this flotilla is moving towards Iran exactly with that intention to deliver special equipment and then to remove enriched uranium. And other option is, of course, probability that Russia is transferring some military equipment into Mali, for example, into Mali to assist Russian African Corps, of course, right? We will find out. We will find out about it in upcoming days. Some information has to become available about this mysterious flotilla. Also, I want to share with you, dear friends, this information that according to Lebanese Health Ministry, since the beginning of latest assault on Lebanon by Israeli forces, 2,988 civilians were killed. 9,210 civilians were injured, and this information is from yesterday. And I'm afraid by this moment, casualties among Lebanese civilians could be much higher than that, because Israel never actually stopped targeting Lebanese people, targeting Lebanon, and they continue to erase from the face of the earth settlements, entire settlements on in the southern Lebanon. Also, I want to share with you this information, dear friends. Strange situation happened, strange accident happened in US when two F-18s, to be more specific, EA F-18G Growler jets collide mid-air during the air show. You can see on your screen what happened. I actually want to share with you separately video of this accident. Pilots ejected, pilots survived actually, but very strange accident. Probably there was some misunderstanding in the communication between the pilots, and they just smash at each other in a very specific manner. I have never seen in my life anything like that. Many accidents, unfortunately, are happening during the air shows, but including when planes are colliding with each other. But I have not seen anything like this ever. Oh, look. They were dancing in the air. It's crazy, isn't it? Let's watch the video. I guess when this second F-18 that was behind, when it was approaching, this first one, leading plane, should take some turn, right? But there was some misunderstanding in the communication, and they just for a couple of seconds, these two planes were kind of dancing with each other. Of course, they lost speed, significant damage to airframe, and pilots had to eject. Very strange accident. It's good that pilots survived. They survived, and only no one was. As a result of this strangest aerial incident I have ever seen in my life. I have seen dozens of all sorts of videos about media collisions and ejections from the planes and stuff like that. But this is something truly extraordinary, man. I wanted to share with you this video in case you missed it, in case you didn't see it. Also, I want to share with you, dear friends, this information that according to this article in on RT, US is manufacturing fraudulent case for invasion of Cuba. Foreign Minister of Cuba stated, Cuban Foreign Minister Bruno Rodriguez Parilla has accused the US of fabricating a pretext for a potential invasion following Axios reports claiming that their island had acquired attack drones from the Russia and Iran. Rodriguez Parilla described the Axios reports as an attempt to concoct a fraudulent case to justify the ruthless economic war against the Cuban people and their eventually military aggression. He added that Cuba neither threatens nor desires war. So, okay, I mean, Havana looks like is trying to debunk the reports, earlier reports, that they acquired about 300 attack drones from Russia, also some drones from China. Axios actually reported about it, citing some classified intelligence. Well, by the way, presence of attack drones, even if Cuba brought 300, 500 or 1,000 Geran drones, for example, from Russia, or any other attack drones, or some attack drones from China, and so what? I mean, presence of the drones on its own does not justify aggression against Cuba. Cuba has every right to protect itself. It has a military. It has as long as they have opportunity to buy weapons, they have every right to do so, right? And who is US to tell them, no, you can't do it? So I don't understand this very strong reaction from the Havana on this report on Axios. But when it comes to US aggression against Cuba, I'm quite sure, unfortunately, I'm quite sure that US will attack Cuba and will try to recolonize this island before midterm elections. And that means in next several months, before end of summer, actually. I'm afraid Washington gonna go for it. And they're gonna try to recolonize Cuba before midterm elections, and then try to rally masses behind the current regime in US based on this so-called victory that, look, Cuba is ours now, and stuff like that. And I mean, I guess tens of millions of Americans probably will love it, right? To say that, well, Cuba is ours now, look what we did. We overthrow yet another government, and we are now in charge. Because many Americans love what they did with Venezuela. Easy for colonizing countries left and right is a God-given right for Americans. I mean, I don't know. Venezuela did not do nothing wrong to Americans. So why would Americans applaud aggression against Venezuela? But many of them did, actually, right? So they will react in the same way in regards to Cuba. Of course, there will be voices that will say that US committed yet another crime. But majority will just do nothing, either applaud or do nothing. Also, I want to share with you, dear friends, this image, first image that appeared on internet about two-seated version of the Russian Su-57 fighter jet. Designation of this fighter jet is Su-57D, according to reports. And this fighter jet is designed and probably will go in production for foreign customers. And one of their first foreign customers for two-seated Su-57 will be India, I believe, will be India, because there was negotiations between Russian and Indian side about Su-57 was going on for years now, and according to reports, India's key demand was that Su-57 has to be multi-role fighters. It has to be two-seated airframe, right? And Russian aerospace industry took into account India's desires, and because potentially there is a massive contract on the horizon, for dozens, possibly hundreds of planes. Well, Russian aerospace industry, Sukhoi Constructor Bureau did invested bigger in creation of this two-seated model of the fighter jet, and I think Indian side gonna be happy about it, man. Indian side gonna be happy about it, and I expect during the year agreement even to be signed there between Russia and India. New Delhi Indian Air Force probably will purchase several dozen of planes in Russia, and then manufacturing of these planes probably will be transferred to India, as it was the case with Su-30s. Su-30 MKIs mostly are produced in India, and they have 200 of those planes. And they might buy another several hundred of Su-57s too, two-seated models. It does look quite interesting, isn't it, dear friends? What you say? I prefer, I'm not gonna lie, one-seated variant is one that I think is the best-looking fighter jet ever. But as a multi-role fighter, these two-seated modification will definitely sell well, man. And India wants multi-role fighter jets. They like Su-30s, and they are multi-role, right? And to be good multi-role fighter, you basically need a two-seated variation. Pilot is focused on the piloting, and the weapons operator is focused on the rest of the stuff, right? It makes it easier to operate as a multi-role fighter, while one-seated modification of the Russian either Su-35s or Su-57s are air dominance, air superiority fighter jets first and foremost, although they are well capable of ground attacks too. But two-seated modification is, of course, will be mostly focused on ground, on multi-role operations, multi-role purpose, and I think maybe Russia itself will also purchase certain number of these planes, because Su-30s, by the way, recommended, definitely prove themselves to be extremely capable planes in Russian Air Force, right? They are not as maneuverable, not as advanced in terms of air-to-air combat as Su-35s, but as a multi-role fighter jets, as a multi-role platforms, Su-30s definitely proved to be extremely good airframe, extremely good place, and therefore maybe it would not be just India, by the way, or some other customers worldwide, but maybe Russian Air Force also will purchase a couple of dozens of these planes. We will see, but it's good, man. I was happy when I see this picture, because first thing to come to my mind was, well, India gonna buy a couple of hundreds of these planes now, because they wanted two-seated model of the Su-57. So some good news there, and there are also difference. Let me share with you this information that chairman of the Russian State Duma, Vyacheslav Volodin, commented on latest I would not say tensions, but latest developments in regards to Russia-Armenia relationships. If Armenia exits their Eurasian Union, it could cost their economy at least $5 billion. Volodin said. He also noted that the trade turnover between Russia and Armenia shrunk 45% in 2025, aimed at prospects of their accession to the European Union. And this is a quite devastating number, that trade between Armenia and Russia shrunk 45%. Can you imagine what will happen with that trade if Armenia will actually leave Eurasian Economical Union and will prefer joining EU for whatever reasons? I don't know, man. I don't know how Armenia gonna survive. These people that are Western world put in charge there in Armenia are pushing this country towards, I don't know, self-destruction. Looks like it's sad to see. It's sad to see, and I mean, hopefully Armenian people will wake up, and this autumn, when elections gonna take place, they will water these idiots, Pashinyan and rest of their scum, out of offices. Otherwise, I mean, they should blame themselves then when in 3 to 5 years from now, in 7 years from now, Armenia gonna end up in some under the leadership of people like Pashinyan. If Armenia will end up in some freaking very dark place, man. But they have a chance. No one should complain that they did not have a chance. This autumn, there are going to be parliamentary elections in Armenia. People should decide, man. People should decide, because Armenia only exists because of Russia, for God's sake. Modern Armenia exists only because of the Russia. And I don't understand how this can be forgotten. I can say same about Georgia, by the way. Georgia, as we know, it only exists because of Russia. And myself, I'm a Georgian Ossetian, by the way, and I'm Georgian Ossetian because Georgian and Ossetian people exist as a Georgian and Ossetian or Alan people because of the Russia. If Russia did not came to North Caucasus and then Southern Caucasus, there would be no Georgia, there would be no, and Georgians, by the way, they all will be assimilated by Turkey, of course, and there would be no Ossetian or Alan people too, either on the southern part of Caucasus Mountain or in the north, where right now there is a North Ossetia Alania Autonomous Republic of the Russian Federation. So many peoples all over the former Soviet Union survived as a unique historical, cultural, unique group of peoples with unique history, culture, and traditions. Many people survived there only thanks to Russia and Russian people and the Russian world. And I don't understand how anybody can ignore this, man, and how anybody can be so ignorant and ungrateful to forget everything and go against Russia, man. It's I don't know, man. It's crazy. It's crazy. I want to share with you also, dear friends, this information about a new phase of Middle East energy crisis. According to Financial Times, information is shared by TASS news agency. About 80 countries allegedly have introduced emergency measures, newspaper says, and well, that's quite stuff there, quite something. The global energy crisis caused by the Middle East conflict is entering a new phase as the summer season approaches, the Financial Times reported, citing sources. According to the newspaper, approximately 80 countries have introduced emergency measures to protect their economies. Paul Deagle, chief economist at the asset manager Aberdeen, told the newspaper that the price of Brent crude could reach $180 per barrel, I guess, if crisis in the Middle East continue. And unfortunately, crisis in the Middle East and their at least partial isolation of the Middle East will continue for many months, potentially years. to come if Western ruling class is not being deterred by only forces that can deter Western ruling class, that is Russia and China. But $180 per barrel, that's quite a lot. Prices of oil is already high, by the way. For example, this morning, RIA Novosti reported that Brent crude oil rose up to $111 per barrel, for example, and right now maybe price is even higher, which is a lot, obviously. TASS news agency is also reporting that AfD, German party, Alternative for Germany party, wants to restart Nord Stream after elections in Pomerania land in Germany. That's quite interesting. I don't think global is going to allow anybody to restart Nord Stream, to restore and then restart operations on the Nord Streams. But anyways, let's go through details here. Alternative for Germany party branch in the state of Mecklenburg-Vorpommern plans to repair and restore their Nord Stream gas pipeline and ensure their return of nuclear power if it wins the state elections in September. Der Spiegel magazine reports this, citing a draft of the party's platform. So, okay, they want to restore Nord Stream pipelines and start importing gas. Not happening, I think. Not happening, and globalists would not allow that. State elections in Mecklenburg-Vorpommern will be, or Pomerania, how it says, man? Pomerania. Elections in this Pomerania land will be held on September 20. AfD's approval rating in the region is 35%, and the party could theoretically enter the state government. Alternative for Germany has already developed a government program titled Ready to Blue Turn. Blue is their official AfD party color, which is sent to AfD members via email. The document is expected to be approved on May 30 at the party congress in Bremen. The AfD platform advocates changes to economic and energy policy. Specifically, as Der Spiegel points out, the party advocates repairing and resuming operations on the Nord Stream gas pipeline, as well as preparing for return to nuclear energy. I mean, both ideas are right ideas, of course. But globalists, nevertheless, not going to allow this to happen. That's the issue. At the same time, the platform notes their expansion of wind power should be halted. Focus magazine, meanwhile, emphasized that the party seeks to achieve rapprochement with Russia by launching Nord Stream. Well, Germany not going to lose nothing, right? Germany only going to gain if relationships with Russia are good. I mean, any country in this world will only gain if relationships with Russia are good. But yet again, Germany is not controlled by people who serves by politicians that are, or Germany is not led by politicians that serve people, German people. German politicians are serving globalists, majority of them, right? And globalists they will not allow, man. They will not allow Germany to be strong. Right, so therefore they will not allow Nord Stream pipelines to be restored, and I don't think they will even allow Germany to go again to reopen or to build the new nuclear power plants. Globalists will keep Germany down as much as they can, man. And I don't know. I don't think. Maybe I'm too skeptical, but I don't think Alternative for Germany party will change much in this regard. But nevertheless, it is interesting that there is some party in Germany that at least don't looking for a war with Russia. That's a progress, right? That's a progress. RIA Novosti is also reporting that residents of Austria and Germany are interested in moving to Russia. consul general stated about it. So residents of Austria and Germany are interested in moving to Russia. Dmitry Chikashin, consul general in Salzburg, told RIA Novosti. The agency source noted that there is currently growing demand for participation in the state program for the voluntary resettlement of compatriots to Russia as repatriates. He added that their interest is steady. They are very different people and different generations. There are those who have lived in Austria or Germany for a long time. They are natives of these countries too, and they are people from the former Soviet Union, former USSR, including Russian Germans. Cherkashin said, and it is true, by the way, very many Russian Germans, ethnically Germans, but Russians from Russia that moved into Germany either in 90s or after Soviet Union collapsed, basically. Many of them are coming back, actually. Many of Russian Germans and their descendants, by the way, are coming back, and that's good, man. That's good, great, right? I always said, by the way, no matter relationships with this European psychopathic leadership and elites, door should be always open for communication between the ordinary peoples, right? And door always should be open for Europeans or the Westerners from Europe, from Canada, from US, from anywhere, from Australia, New Zealand, Westerners, and not just Westerners, by the way, but we are talking about West now, right? Those should be open for people that potentially want to migrate to Russia. There are waves already of migration from Canada, from US, from Australia, by the way, from Europe, right? And I expect these waves to become a tsunami in next 10 to 15 years. Tens of thousands, potentially hundreds of thousands, maybe even millions of people going to migrate to Russia from Europe and from North America. I'm quite sure about it. Quite sure about it. And doors should be open, man, because these are highly educated, hardworking, law-obeying people that prize their normality, that want to live in a normal country where normality is welcomed, right? And Russia is the country that can offer this, right? Safety, normality, everything that you want, basically, you can find here in Russia to live happily, So therefore, I think millions of people gonna come to Russia, man. Give it 10, 15 years from now. So yes, I just wanted to share with you this information that this process continues, and many people from Austria and Germany want to come. They're welcome, man. We need more people here in Russia, of course, and it's only benefits everybody, right? If hardworking people, highly educated, hardworking, law-abiding people will come to Russia and do their best to be happy and to be successful members of their community. Everybody will benefit. These migrants that will become Russians eventually, and they're all of Russian society, of course. And dear friends, few more news about some very interesting stuff. Or let me say somewhat interesting stuff nowadays, because topic of UFO is, of course, used for deception by the US ruling class, by the Western ruling class. And therefore, nowadays, not that many people are paying attention to this stuff. But nevertheless, there is reports on RIA Novosti, by the way. This is a serious news agency, right? And they are reporting that there was an article in New York Times, according to which US has announced the existence of 4 species of aliens. 4 species of aliens. Wow. So United States has discovered there are 4 different types of aliens after UFO crashes. New York Post, it's not New York Times, New York Post, by the way. After New York Post reported, citing Dr. Hall Puthoff, people who participated in a recovery operations said there were at least 4 distinct types. The scientist says. Puthoff noted that he himself had no direct access to data. It's always like that. They did not have direct access to data, but they know because they know. There was 4 species of aliens, right? Yeah, why not 15 or 25 or 107? Anyways, Puthoff noted that he himself had no direct access to data on extraterrestrial life, but emphasized that he trusted the people he had spoken with. He said he was talking about 4 distinct life forms, sent life forms. Right? Last week, dozens of photos, videos, and text documents were released in the United States following President Donald Trump's promise to release information from the U.S. Department of Defense about extraterrestrial life and UFOs. And dear friends, I don't know what you think about it, but in my personal opinion, this topic of UFOs that is being pushed now by Western propaganda means and Western state institutions, including U.S. administration, White House, Pentagon, and so on. This is all BS and deception. That's what it is, I think. So they are trying to, mislead people, divert attention of the people from some points to another points. I don't trust anything that comes out of them, right? And even though I myself believe that, of course, in this vast universe, probably there is thousands, probably tens of thousands of life forms, including sentient life forms. I have no doubts about it. I mean, how else, really? Universe is so vast, we cannot even imagine. I mean, honestly, by the way, we cannot even imagine, isn't it? We are talking about, I don't know, man, observable universe is billions and billions and billions of light years. And there is also some stuff beyond observable universe, right? Which can be even like billion times bigger. So it is impossible that only on this planet, on Earth, there is life forms, millions of life forms, including sentient life form, as we are human beings, right? But when Pentagon shares something with public, by the way, I cannot help but doubt that report. I'm automatically beginning to think that this is some dodgy stuff. They are just diverting attention of public from something towards some other topics, right? Irrelevant topics, and probably that's exactly the case. I don't think there is any objective reason for alien species, sentient alien species that are capable of interstellar travel or even intergalactic travel. There is no freaking reason for them to waste their time and resources observing us or visiting our planet for anything. I mean, some people might say, well, we have a liquid water, we have a greenery sea, so many trees. Who gives a damn, man? Can you really believe that in this vast universe there is no planets with the liquid freaking oceans of water, salt water, or there is no lakes with the fresh water? On Titan, by the way, on Europa, moons of our biggest planets, right? There is liquid oceans. In case of Titan, on the surface, there is a methane oceans, right? In case of Europa, under the ice must be liquid ocean, right? And on many other moons too. when it comes to, so what I want to say is there is nothing really unique about us, right? Nothing, absolutely nothing unique about us. We are just too self-centric, really. We as a humans, we think we are center of the universe, while we are not actually. There is nothing extraordinary about us or our planet, for that matter. Really, I mean, it's a wonderful, beautiful planet, very rich with life forms and greenery and all that stuff. But there is probably millions of other planets out there in universe with similar, with life forms, with oceans, with trees and the flowers, and there are freaking million life forms out there, right? So if you are that sentient species, right, alien sentient species that are capable of interstellar or intergalactic travel, would you really spend time to visit our planet Earth? I mean, honestly, man, when you know that modern humans barely capable of reaching like orbit, planetary orbit yet, and only on few occasions, or maybe only on dozens of occasions, did manage to get anywhere further than local moon or local couple of planets. And only there is two objects created by humans that left solar system. One, Voyager 2 actually left solar system, I believe, and Voyager 1 is approaching this is about to leave heliosphere, right? And that's all it is. That's all we got, right? We are still using these chemical thrusters, chemical reactions for liftoff. For species capable of interstellar or intergalactic travel, we are just too. I mean, we have nothing really to impress. We are just too young as a capable civilization, as an industrial technological civilization, and therefore there is no reason why would anybody actually care about us, right? In 1,000 years from now, when we will be probably type 1 civilization by Kardashev scale, then maybe, I mean, even then, I mean, type 1 civilization, no big deal, really. I mean, even then, probably we would not be on a scale to be interesting for species that are capable of freaking interstellar or intergalactic travel. So I don't know what's going on here, dear friends, with all this UFO stuff. And, there is some natural phenomenon. There is also some secret developments of weapons and stuff like that that are classified. And the UFO topic is a good excuse, right? To hide whatever you want to hide. You can say, oh, UFO, by the way. Okay? And that explains what? Nothing in reality, but you will direct attention, right, of the people. Nevertheless, there is a big push for this UFO topic. And look what Trump published on his Truth Social. On one side, he's sitting in some, I don't know, next to some deck and pushing some red button, and there is some lasers and satellites. And if you take a closer look, by the way, at one point there is an explosion next to UK. So he's kind of bombing UK or something like that. And on the other picture, you can see this AI generated image of Trump walking next to alien, some gray looking alien species. Freaking nonsense, man. Freaking nonsense, right? And that's why I struggle to take anything seriously about topic of interterrestrial life, especially sentient life that is coming from official institutions, man. They cannot be trusted. Nah. All they do is lie about stuff and manipulate with their societies, and All they do is hide real stuff, right, from the people. So therefore, that's my take. If you believe in White House's reports or the Pentagon's reports, then it's up to you. But they are manipulating with their. All they do is manipulating with their people, right? And this is it, dear friends. I mean, such a good comment, by the way, such a good comment from John Dutchman. Reality is outpacing parody, for sure. 100%, isn't it? And we are living in very strange times when sometimes, I don't know about you, John, or other members of our community, but sometimes I'm jokingly saying, I mean, what the hell is wrong with this matrix, man? Because, I mean, it does not, I mean, so many questions, isn't it? So many questions about this, everything, man. So, well, and there was a super chat, dear friends. There was a super chatter on Rumble from Scooby again. Let me highlight, dear friends, if I may. And also, Scooby brought a gifter of premium membership gift card. Thank you very much, Scooby. Every such purchase of a premium membership gift card is a $5 donation to this project. So thank you very much, Scooby, for that. And let me highlight super chat from Scooby. Almost 3 hour stream. Goodness me, man. Wow. And Scooby, once again, thank you very much, Scooby, for premium subscription gift card or gifter on Rumble, and also another super chatter and another $2 donation on Rumble. Scooby is commenting, what if they were trying to collapse Russia with their sanctions and the war and they just failed? Now they are searching for ways ahead after the fact. Well, yet again, on a baseline propaganda of the Western ruling class, or the narrative that is coming from there, is exactly that well, there was expectations that Russia will collapse to do it through the sanctions and everything immediately, and they will overrun country. But I think Western ruling class, unfortunately, is much cleverer than that. True decision makers. I'm not talking about Ursula von der Leyen and people like that, Stammer, Merz, and this other guy, Macron. And I'm not talking about those puppets. I'm talking about actual decision makers in the West. I think they are clever ones, right? And we should not underestimate their capabilities, including intellectual capabilities. And so I don't think their intention actually was to collapse Russia. Because if Russia collapsed, do you think which country will benefit from that? You might say, well, West would then in that case take over the Russia and exploit the Russian resources. I wouldn't be so confident in that, because if we are in a thought experiment, if you imagine that Western ruling class actually managed to collapse Russia, and if there is a chaos, you think what China would do? They will go ahead and establish control over their entire Siberia and the far east of Russia, from Ural Mountains eastwards. And they will say they are coming in for humanitarian assistance, right? You think Western ruling class would be faster than China? No. China is ready. China is very actively, closely monitoring developments in Russia and in Central Asia. And they are locked and ready. And Scooby, remember, there was a couple of years ago, there was disturbances in Kazakhstan. And the first time CSTO participated in a military operation. CSTO, which is a collective security treaty organization in which there are several former Soviet republics as a member. This is a military organization. CSTO sent its contingent, including Russian troops, Belarusian troops, right, into Kazakhstan to stabilize the situation. And reaction was very rapid. On behalf of CSTO, on behalf of Moscow, first and foremost. And the current government of Tokayev exists only because of this very rapid reaction, right, from Moscow and their CSTO. And I was saying straight away at the time that Moscow has to get involved immediately, or if Moscow is late, then China will. And China was deploying forces, by the way. China was activating forces that they have on the border, in borderline regions, and were deploying more assets to go in and take care of situation. Because in no universe, China would allow Western ruling class to establish full control over the Kazakhstan. They have a significant influence. Don't get me wrong, West has a quite significant influence, unfortunately, not just in Kazakhstan, but in some other Central Asian republics too. But there is a difference, isn't it, between partial influence and their complete influence. And China was ready to act. And their CSTO, Moscow, and their, other capitals of CSTO countries don't really have much option but to act, right? And we did. And we sent our troops and stabilized the situation. But trust me, I'm 100% confident if we did not react this fast, China would send its troops into Kazakhstan. They were ready, man. They were ready. So they are actively monitoring the situation. And if anybody thinks that Beijing is just, just cares about trade and stuff, and they don't pay much attention to geopolitical developments or activities of the Western secret services and their assets in the neighboring countries, no, that's a mistake. They care very much. And they are ready to take steps in any direction, literally, all around. And Scooby, it's, I see, thank you very much, Scooby, for your comment. And I see your comment here. China shows no real desire to conquer or occupy anything beyond Taiwan, which technically is Chinese anyways. I agree with you. I 100% agree with you, Scooby. It's not about Chinese desire to occupy any territory. Taiwan is China, period, right? It's China cannot occupy its own territory. It's China, full stop, right? But when I'm talking about Kazakhstan or any other direction, just because China has no desire to occupy any territory does not mean that China gonna allow Western ruling class to use these territories against China as a battering ram, right? So that's why I'm saying, and I'm quite confident, by the way, that if CSTO did not react in the way it reacted on instability in Kazakhstan a few years ago, China was locked and ready to send its troops to stabilize the situation. And they will then withdraw. They will go in not to occupy Kazakhstan, but to do very same work that CSTO troops did. When these armed gangs were suppressed, right? Tokayev's government was saved, basically, and that is that. Okay, by the way. So it's not about that they want to occupy anything, but they want to protect themselves, right? They just want to protect themselves. That's how it is. And dear friends, I guess this is it. I guess this is it for now. Longer live stream. I knew it would be long. I mean, there was so many news to share, but I didn't expect live stream to be 3 hours long. After this, I will end now stream, and after that, I will make a couple of short videos, from different segments, and I will publish those videos for members of our community that definitely cannot follow 3 hour stream. So they will, if they want to, they will take a look at those short videos. Thank you very much, dear friends, for your attention and support. Have a wonderful day, and dear friends, under this video in description box there is all the links that you can use to support this media project of mine and my work. Have a wonderful day, and take care. See you this evening if you are around. Join the stream. I will launch second live stream at 9 p.m. Moscow time. Bye for now. Scooby, thank you very much for your activity on Rumble and your support and donations and super chat. Thank you. And many thanks to everybody, of course, who supported and continues to support. Bye for now, and see you later.